fail.
Yeah,
How does it get addressed?
Look,
All right, Trevor, you going first.
I will put something forward, and one thing that I pick up there, the last 20 years, since Brighton and Hove became a city, became an entity, separate before that, two entities, we've had minority administrations. And yes, that has worked to a point, but what Labour's putting forward in this time round is we really do want to try and get to majority administration, because we can actually start going forward. There is inevitably a minority administration will have horse trading and the compromise. You don't force through, and you get overlap between the manifestos, and you look to deliver those well. But the way what Labour is committed to lifting, restoring basic services, which was our fundamental point in our manifesto. And if I hear that point. There is some parts of the city which have, for a very long time, not been satisfactory on the refuse collection and recycling. I've heard those points you've made there about why some of this is, but Brighton and Hove is one of the worst range of recycling in the country. It's about 303rd on the list, down the bottom of recycling range. And there are reasons for that, but I think we, as a Labour Party, want to really open this up, understand the contracts, and really get that better. We should not, Brighton and Hove, all places, people are genuinely surprised when they hear we've got one of the lowest ranges of recycling. And I've met people knocking on doors in Hove who drive to friends in Ada and in Shoreham and do their recycling there, because they're different plastic pots and everything they can get recycled. And I've also known people that diligently collect recycling and take it to the Green Centre and all that. That's very good. But there is more that we can do as a city council to look at that. So I'm not going to, target the people doing the work. There has been strikes whilst the Greens have been in administration. I would actually say that the Labour stepped up that and been prepared to work very well with the unions to resolve some of the conflicts there. But we do need to look at meet with the management of City Clean and Veolia and make sure we've got what we're setting out to do. Because yes, those contracts were signed and they're 25 years ago, or whatever. But we may need to revisit that to improve upon the range, get a frequency right. If there's, like you're saying, rather than impose a reduced refuse collection fortnightly, maybe we need to look at where the packaging is coming from. That might need to go into the supermarket and say, how do we get this so you get real compostable, domestic level compostable packaging in the waste? And so the drive for refuge collection might change. We can't just reduce the refuge collection in the hope that people suddenly change their ways. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for particularly families. So we've got to find a more engaging way and listen to the communities and find community-led.
I'll go Mark's next.
Just a couple of things. Just on the democracy side of things. Yes, we have been a minority administration for many years, and that does involve coalition building. In Europe, coalitions are a perfectly normal and sensible way of parties finding the things that unite them, or even working together and working on things that agree. Elected dictatorships are never a good idea. And you see that in Bristol, an elected mayor was the council has just gone away from an elected mayor. In Liverpool, the council has gone away from an elected mayor. Brighton rejected the elected mayor proposal many years ago. So yes, strong government, if you like, strong central majority rule has some benefits, but it also means that if you save nothing done without us, that allows those voices, if you have a majority in a committee, you can just reduce that, ignore the majority, ignore the minority views and just steamroll things through. A committee, we would like to be a majority, but we're committed very much from our background. Myself personally, I come from the voluntary community sector. Engagement, Ornstein's hierarchy of engagement, nine rungs on this ladder, and co-design is the top of that rung of the ladder. And I think that's something that we should be working with together. And I will have criticisms of what's happened in the past, under administrations because there hasn't been co-design. And when there is co-design, as happened on Madeira Drive, you get good results. I was part of the team that actually produced that route through there. Give credit, actually, it was Lee Wers, one of your predecessors, who came up with the idea for that one-way and cycle route. So, but on recycling, and on particularly, you say about people driving over to other places to recycle PTTs, pots, tubs and trays. They can only be reused once. They are not, the quality of the plastic is not good enough to recycle. The best use of that, I'm afraid, well, the best use is to not have things in that stuff in the first place. But the next best thing is, unfortunately, to incinerate it, because that is the only thing we can do with that very low-grade plastic. So we need to work, as you say, though, on packaging. But that is a national issue. You know, it would be great for Brighton and Hove to somehow manage to persuade Sainsbury's or Waitrose or Aldi to have different packaging here. But I frankly don't think, given the size of one city, it's going to work. And that's what working with other cities is important. Because you can have clout, things like the LGA, Local Government Association, you can have clout at national level, but that's why working together is important.
All right, Bridget's desperate to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to give some figures. So 30% of what is collected in the city is recycled, 69% is goes to New Haven, to that big building where it's burned and turned into electricity, and 0.8% goes to landfill. So I was just going to say, if after the elections, I suggest that you approach whoever your councillors are and ask them to take you to the recycling facility in Hollingdean and out to New Haven, because I've done it a few times and it's really, really interesting, and you'll learn about more than all of us know together there. That's all I want to say, really.
Okay, right. Well, Alistair and Rob, I don't know if you'd like to reply. Rob, want to go first?
Oh, fine. In 2019, there was Labour signed a memorandum of understanding with the Greens, which they kept secret. They worked as a coalition on certain issues. They didn't tell anyone. It had to be prized out of them. They negotiated a 25% pay increase for bin workers. Maybe that was deserved, but we didn't see any improvement, at least in Patchman.
You can't change the past. Tell us what you're going to do in the future.
Rubbish. Well, people don't. You say that, but do people always believe what politicians go on?
Well, we don't. That's why we don't believe.
That's
I think
why-
that's truth. We know that. What are you going to do about it now in the future?
Well, I think
you
under
can't
the,
change the past.
under the Conservative administration, which was a long time ago, we did work very closely with the unions. We didn't have any strikes. The rubbish collection did work, and it works in other Conservative administrations. I just
Why do you
don't
work
think.
on party
There's
lines?
striking.
Why can you not talk about it? Right,
I
you
was
talk about the country nationally.
All right, Alistair's going to talk about it. Thank you.
I was just saying we need better management. It doesn't matter whether they change their collections or not. They just don't collect it now. So clearly they need to work more closely with the unions, with the management, with City Clean, which is wholly council-run department. And they haven't. They've had 12 years. It hasn't been a priority. It hasn't worked. The Greens say, we believe in recycling and rubbish collection, so on. They don't do it. And under a Conservative administration, we will focus on that. That is our number one priority in our manifesto.
All right. Rob, then we're going to change subject.
Yeah, I find it quite baffling, to be perfectly honest, because I've worked at the NHS and the CCG, and I've worked in contract management. And if contracts aren't working, we met with the provider, we discussed what was going on, discussed what was going wrong, and did an action plan to make it better. I don't see any of that happening here. And the people who are suffering, all of us. So that for me, so I'm still baffled. They keep saying we signed this contract and someone extended it and someone did this. Well, who's managing the contract? Who is literally sitting down and going through bit by bit as to what is and isn't working? If things need to be changed, you do a contract variation.
But it is working.
No,
It's working for Veolia.
Well, that's
the
you're
problem.
you
And that's
don't
why they
suspect with the
don't
Greens
change
one in the council. So you know, I'm a council officer as well. So, and I've also worked in the NHS and the CCG. It's literally a case of council officers can sit with and do the contract management. It's not the elected officials who do that, but they're directed by the elected officials. If they're not being asked, if we aren't being asked to do the work that we're doing, then it's not getting done. So the lead member, the cabinet member, needs to have a word with the director of that particular department and basically find out what's going on. Doesn't seem like any of that is happening. Because once again, I sit from two different points of view. From the officer point of view, and from what having done contract management in the previous organisation. Now, that's the first thing. You know, just have a proper look at that. All contracts can be cut. End of. There must be a get-out clause in the contract in the first place. If there wasn't, that's a real bad contract. So, but there has to be a get-out clause somewhere. Now, the key things as well is I just had another quick look. St Albans is the top council in the UK with regards to recycling. It's obviously a Liberal Democrat run council with 43 councillors out of the 54 councillors. The next one is South Oxfordshire, which is a Liberal Democrat and Green combined run council. Now they're completely different areas. You've got South Oxfordshire, which is a bit like most of Brighton, but then you've got St Albans, like the centre of Brighton. So what are they doing right? What are they doing that's making them have such a good recycling rate? And also coming up on resident surveys as doing really well as well. So as I said earlier on, you'd go to the areas that are doing the things well and finding out what they're doing. And I'm glad somebody actually did mention it. Co-production. One thing we need to do more of is community engagement and co-production to find out what works. Something that works in where I live in Kent Town is not going to work in Hollandine. You know, it's not going to work, you know, in quite a lot of the other places. I'm quite sheltered in a way. I can come up from my flat, take the rubbish to the end of the street. If there's space in the bin, I can throw it in. Unfortunately, there's very rarely space in the bin in the first place. But it's the people who live next to the bins are the ones who suffer the most. You know, the people who have the bins who are collected from their outside their front door, who are just a couple of streets away from me, have that type of collection. So there's also varied collections that are going on as well. You know, it seems that depending on which street you live on, depending on what type of collections you get. So I think that needs to be looked at a lot more as well. But I don't think there's going to be an easy solution while everyone's not talking to each other. I totally agree with what you say. I believe that people need to, all the parties, all the councillors need to actually get round the table and discuss this and make sure that this is actually dealt with. It's not party political. You know, it's like, my partner used to vote Green until obviously he met me. And, you know, but it's still the same issues. You know, I know Zach. Zach's a friend of mine. He's an excellent Dem. Zach, who's the deputy party leader of the Green Party. You know, it's a case of like, I have friends from different political parties and none. We still get together and have a chat and discuss things. That's what the elected officials need to do in this council. Otherwise, we're going to be back to, they didn't do it 3 years ago, they didn't do it 10 years ago. You know, and I just think that really annoys me sometimes when you don't see people working together like that.
Now, we've been doing this for a long time.